Hi, everyone. Welcome back to New American Youth Ballet Presents. I'm your host, Elizabeth Flores. Today, I am honored to have Scott Kish with me, a wonderful artist from Toronto. Please tell me a little bit about how you got into your profession as an artist.
I studied kinesiology at the University of Waterloo, and upon graduation, I began doing work as a medical illustrator, utilizing my knowledge of working with cadavers and applied anatomy. And I illustrated a lot of textbooks, but dance was the first time I sat down and kind of combined the fine art with my anatomical knowledge. So I was up back home in London, Ontario, and I was going into the University of Western Ontario with their dance program, observing their dancers and sketching and creating these original works of art. And that was kind of the beginning of my professional art career.
Wonderful. And odd question, but I felt it important to ask. What is the most misunderstood concept about the work you do?
Um, the art or the anatomical aspect, which
I guess maybe if you have two answers, let's entertain both answers.
I think with the art, people don't quite understand where you begin to create something. I think there's a vast background research that is done often by artists before they start to depict something. And when you have the knowledge and you've observed and educated yourself, it's shown in the work, and that kind of differentiates work from someone who's experienced, as opposed to someone who's trying to depict a subject matter that they don't really understand.
Yes. When you discuss the danger of the burnout in young dancers and athletes, can you give me an example?
If the dancer is using the muscles in an inefficient way, or the timing of the muscles is not optimal, certain muscles, there's more strain on certain muscles than the smaller muscles maybe than the larger ones,
Yeah.
and those muscles are getting injured, and it's sidelining the athlete or the dancer. And if they keep training in this way and moving in this way, they're going to keep repeating these. These injuries are going to be repetitive.
One thing I'm seeing teachers start to take a second look at when we tendu side or the legis side, Alice Acond, a certain school of thought is it from the side should be completely flat, utterly flat. And now some dance teachers are finding it more helpful to diagonally take that leg, not front, but a little bit more diagonally, so it's kinder to the hip joint. Of course, I'm going to show the various pictures of dancers, of athletes, of horses, all the different works that you've done. It reminds me a little bit of Degas, where it goes in these different directions, but the movement is such a critical part of your art. It seems they all have this motion to it. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was the kinesiology where we studied the motion, science of human movement. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pleased to expand on that knowledge, the base of knowledge.
And your approach to dancing, to drawing the dancer is so delicate. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes dancers are drawn and the line is not correct. When you look at it, you know what the line should be, and it's, a foot is sickled or something isn't visually or technically correct, but all of them they're just beautiful in every aspect.
I think dance educators can get a deeper understanding of what's going on underneath the surface when they're training. Often you can show somebody how to move, but when you really then get an idea in their head, visualize what's going on with the muscles as they move, they can hold that image and understanding in their head and understand why they're changing their movements or altering the way they move. By educating at a young age, they can keep these visuals in their head as means to help educate themselves as well for their movements, and understand why these changes are important.
Have you ever done a project with like a step-by-step guide? For instance, the 8 body positions, the correct positioning of the 8 body positions. Have you ever done something specifically like that where it's a step-to-step guide?
I haven't done a step-to-step guide yet. No, no.
Because what we're all working with, and I'm sorry, this is a little bit off the record, but it's just curious because I don't have it handy, but we all work with this outdated, the concepts of Russian classical ballet. When I had to learn the 8 body positions,
Right.
and I asked my teacher, and she was, showed me and then got impatient, said, "Here, take this book." And they're very sad sketches of,
Oh,
faces that are very troubled looking. And, of course, the foot is turned out and it's correct, but they're visually very upsetting to look at. But it's what's been around forever as a guide. And I'm just curious if that would ever be something you might take on, because there's such beauty in the work that you do. It would be nice to look at something that's not just a photo of somebody, but the art has it has a nice, I don't know, it has a nice layer between the person and like how it should look visually with the art.
right. Well, I'm always anxious to hear about the needs in the space in the dance world, for creating new materials in the future. So
Yeah, I wish I had the copy on me. I mean, you would laugh at the illustrations, but it's what everybody has used, because it's
yeah,
like that guide, that Vaganova, that kind of Bible of Vaganova, where you look at it as what you got to teach it a certain way. You're working in a square, and the foot has to be directly turned out, but it's not pretty to look at.
when
And
I in Toronto, I was fortunate to be invited by the National Ballet of Canada in to observe their rehearsals. So I'd go in a week at a time, and I would sketch and observe. At that point, you're observing people that have spent years or decades mastering their movements. So yeah, I was really starting or observing at a level that was elite. So their
yes,
movements are refined. So to go back, yeah, but to go back and start and do a step-by-step guide would be taking things, back to the beginning level and then working through that
right.
for an educational.
But it
Uh,
certainly helps with textbooks or something that you have, although things have changed now with the internet from back when
yes,
those that was written, but it does help when you look at something that's visually so beautiful and appealing to strive, where it's not just like this boring, non-dimensional,
yes, or
like,
visually
I don't
going to
know,
the eyes.
stick drawing kind
Yes.
of. And Scott, do you accept commissions if people like your work and they want to commission you for a particular project?
Yes, I do. Yes, they can send in any photos or concept ideas, and I can create from that.
Okay. What is the fastest work you have completed? And what is the longest time you've spent completing a work?
Well, there's some unfinished projects that I started 3 years ago that I still haven't finished, but yeah, that's my own work. Often over a weekend, sometimes somebody will need a commission for a gift or a presentation, and I
Okay,
try to accommodate those needs. It's not that easy to do, but it can be done.
right.
Normally, a couple months is good lead time. If the oil paints take time to dry, and then
Yes,
if any changes or modifications have to be made, it allows for that process and shipping as well.
yes.
Watercolor paintings, you can work more quickly because they dry right away.
And is your work primarily one medium or another? What is
Yeah.
your favorite medium?
Yeah, because of the motion, I find I work primarily in watercolors or in oils.
Okay,
It allows me to blend the paints. The acrylics dry too quickly for me to be able to do the blending effect to achieve the motion feeling and concept.
do you do logos for dance companies as well?
I've done logos. Yeah, I find a lot of friends will contact me if they need a logo because they know that I understand the subject matter, and it's
Yeah,
easier to convey. It's very tough to try to get across artistic or ideas that people have in their head, and to take those ideas and put them on paper. So if somebody has an understanding of the subject matter, it just makes it that much easier to achieve that um, in a visual depiction.
I don't know if people really understand how hard it is to find artists who know how to draw dancers with that line. Like often I always run into it, like if we're trying to do a t-shirt or we're trying to do something with kind of a delicate line where it's not maybe the full picture, and you look so many images where they're clunky or they're incorrect, or it doesn't have any natural motion in the way it should. And that's what struck me, and everything on your site and all the pictures. It's just you can see
Oh, thank you.
that move, you know, in
Yeah.
the most correct way, which National Ballet of Canada, you work with the finest. So you're around dancers with beautiful line.
Yeah, it's sometimes it seemed like they're floating through the air when when I was observing. Yeah, I'd always be amazed, even though I know they're elite. It amazed me to watch them. They make it look so easy. How they just seem to float, and their movement is so smooth. I'm happy to hear that it's coming across in my art.
And what is your process when you were in the studios? Would you be like a fly on the wall sketching during the class, or would you just observe and take it in and later draw what you felt, or how do you work?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I like to work from photographs when I do create pieces, but when I was in observing, there was nothing that would depict anybody specifically. So the observing time was mainly understanding their movements, and I would do some very quick sketches. And then after I got home, I'd go flipping through and try to see if I captured, because you only have a number of seconds to try to retain the image in your head and sketch it out. So that was really about understanding and conveying the motion aspect rather than the detail of the dancers.
Um, Another little bit off the wall question, but I like to ask, what is the best advice you've been given as an artist? And what is the worst advice you've been given as an artist?
The worst advice, I always find this humorous. Some people have looked at my work, which is probably not conventional in my approach, but they say, "Oh, well, our water local community watercolor teacher told us never to paint like you do, or never to work the way you do." And I always find that humorous because I don't really understand why you should have to approach something the way with rigid parameters when you're creating an original work of art. So
Right, right. And the best piece of advice.
uh, stick to what you know. It kind of serves purpose across the board in life, but yeah, when you stick with the subject matter, then you can answer the questions, and you've got the background, and it kind of verifies what you're producing, and you can see it in the results as well.
Were you influenced by a variety of artists that you felt inspired with, or how did you come about your own personal style?
I was two artists when I was beginning after I finished university, and I really sat down and started painting and trying new ideas. Willem de Kooning was one artist that really inspired me, and Gerard Richter was another one. I saw the motion effect there, and de Kooning with his colors and in the fluid lines and abstract compositions. And those are the two artists that had the most influence on me when I was beginning my career.
Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Appreciate you
Take
having me
care.
on. Yeah, thank
See you
you.
soon. Thank you. you.